I get pretty irritated by technology, but in other ways, it is such a gift because otherwise I wouldn't be meeting with you amazing people that are family. And I'm grateful for it because there's just not that many people in this little town that really even care. Okay, so I need to mute myself. In other ways, it is such a gift because otherwise. And then whoever else is here and on YouTube, mute yourself on that side as well. Hey, Lemoyne's joining us today too. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead and connect us to Facebook, and we'll see if, oh, you know what? It won't let me. Okay, that's right. That's fine. It only allowed me to live stream to one. It's fine if we're on YouTube because that's usually where I'm at. So we are all good. And I can close out of that. And let's get started on this and share what I was going to share. I don't think I've got anybody else coming in. Hey, Lemoyne, I'm really glad you're here, friend. It's the second time having here as a family, and I'm grateful that you've joined in. So what I was going to start talking to you guys about is that before I started going live and recording this, the Spirit really, the verse that we're going to be going over today is really short. And because it's really short, I would be able to cover it in 30 minutes. And now I don't mind having a short meeting, but when I looked into the next verse after that, the Spirit said, you need to share what covenant is. Now, this is a word that we are very familiar with in Christianity. We use a lot, but it's not been, I don't think, fully defined enough for us to really comprehend what it is, and why it is important to us. Because when you have religious dogma that comes in, they will tell you what covenant is, not really what it means, or we will use it because it's just part of the vernacular, you know, God's covenant with humanity. Well, what does that even mean? Or the God's covenant of the rainbow, that he's not going to flood the earth again. But what does that mean? And because you will see me in my teachings, I will share with you Mother's covenant. And if you have her mark, which is the Tav, it means mark, sign, fingerprint, and covenant. You will see it on the prefix, and then you'll see the one on the suffix, and then you'll see the one in the center, which is source, creator, Abba. And you hear me say it all the time, the mark, sign, signature, frequency of mother, father, and of source. But what is it? So what I did is I went ahead and I put together a PowerPoint presentation that I want to go over with you of what the Spirit was revealing to me as I was connecting the dots, because he told me that he, she, it, Spirit, Ruach, Spirit of Truth, Sophia, whoever I'm listening to that is guiding me, my higher self, said, you need to connect it to the beginning. And I went, okay, I will. So without further ado, I am going to pull up the PowerPoint presentation. And as soon as I get done with it, we will have a little bit of room for discussion. And then we will go into the verse. And then it will also set us up for next weekend. And we'll do a quick refresher before we go into the next verse as well, so we can connect the two. Because this is important. Again, this is all connected with the writings of why parables are used. So let's get into the right slide. And then I will do a share screen and we will go from here. And it's been a while since I've done, I can think about it now, Regina, we haven't done a PowerPoint presentation on Zoom in a long time. So hopefully it will work well. It should. Minimize so that we can go ahead and start. All right. And I'll be reading and talking as we go along. So the question is, what is a covenant? And we're going to be addressing this from the beginning to the end. Here we have the word for covenant. It is bet resh yotav, and it is pronounced as brit, the word brit. And it means a covenant, treaty, or alliance. So I felt that if we're going to look into something that they've used as an English word, then it's probably a really good idea that we dive into what the English interpretation or where it came from in the etymology so that we can see what covenant means. So in the 13th century, it meant a mutual compact to do or not do something, or a contract. But it's from Old French. So if we continue taking it back, an old French word that means an agreement or a pact or a promise, and then 12, which is 12th century, but originally present participle of convenir, agree and meet, from Latin meaning come together and unite. Now I bolded that and I put an underline because when we look at the word unite, this is part of unify, and the letter aleph is the first letter of the word achad, which means to be one or to unify or to unite as one. So we can see that there is part of this word that has to do with coming together and uniting, to come together. And when we look at it in law, it's a promise made by a deed that they used in the late 14th century. But look at this, guys. Applied in scripture to God's arrangements with man as a translation of Latin testamentum and Greek diatheke, both renderings Hebrew barit through testament is also used for the same word in different places. So when we hear the word covenant or we hear testament, like New Testament, Old Testament, that is the word barit, covenant. And I'm going to show you some things with this, but I don't want you to lose that, because I think it's very interesting, because testament, there's like last wills and testaments, the testament of somebody who has died to transfer property. But how is that connecting to brit? So there's something with them even using the English word as testament that is covering up the Hebrew word brit, because there's some huge little pieces that we're missing by not knowing where the origin or tracing it down to what is connected. And this is straight through so tired, guys. These energies are kicking my butt, and I already had an hour and 45 minute conversation this morning. So I've got all of that coming in too with everything that was being shared this morning. It is a computer. What am I looking for? An internet site. There we go. A website called Etymology Online. And so I can help trace the words, because since I'm a word geek and we're using English, I really like to know where it's at. And so when it traces it down to Hebrew in etymology, I really pay high attention to see how it morphed. So when let's continue a little further on here. So now when we look at what the definition is through Strong's, this is what they explain brit is. And it's from bara in the sense of cutting, like the other word bara, a compact, because made by passing between pieces of flesh. And they've translated it many times as confederacy. Now, in ancient days, the way they used to make covenant was way more extreme than what we do today. And there's no way in the world that we would ever be allowed to do this, because we would get animal rights activists that would want to come in and stop it, and I wouldn't want to be involved with it. What they would do is they would take an animal and they would sacrifice the animal and they would cut it into two pieces. And when they were making a covenant, they would pass between, both of them would pass between the pieces. Now connect this to Abraham in the covenant of promise, when the animals were divided and the flaming torch, that was a seraphim that came through. Anyway, I'm just trying to connect some dots for you guys, what this means. Covenant was very serious, and they would say, let it be unto me as unto these animals if I ever break my covenant with you. So we're talking very extreme. So you think about it, you've got the animal that is split in two, and you walk between the pieces, between the blood. That is why it's called a covenant of promise, because there's a promise that is being made that is very serious in its nature. Now that was the ancient way of doing that. I'm not saying that that's what we're doing today, because we're definitely not there. That is history. But when we take a look at the letters, you're going to begin to see all that is connected to this and why I'm sharing this with you. So when we move next, here is from the primitive root. So where we went from barit, this is where it traced all the way back to, in its root, static form, the lump of clay that is waiting to have something done with it. It means to select. as denominative from bar, to feed, also equivalent to barar, to render clear. Now, you have heard us use this phrase many times about rendering everything clear. And the etymology of render is to give back, return, and restore. Hopefully this is kind of making you think of some things, because this would be connected to even the Hebrew word shuv, where we get teshuvah, repent, which means to turn and build love as if the offense never happens. So it's full restoration. So this word has to do with restoration, about returning and giving back. If you've followed me along for a while and you know the letters, you would even see the bet resh and you would begin to connect some dots. But I made some slides, so if this is new to you, you'll be able to see. And I apologize. I know it's difficult when I'm sharing these concepts, because if you haven't, I know that some of the people that are watching here know the letters, and so they're able to follow along a little easier. And I know it's difficult when you can't follow or you don't know the letters. So maybe I can actually do something that will help here. I'll use my highlighter pen. So this is the bet, and here's the resh, and here's the letter hey. What I want to point out before I move on is this letter hey right here. Many times it is removed. And it is removed because this is the hidden teachings that are only given to those who are spiritually mature. Because if you were listening into what Brandon and I were discussing this morning, or if you happen to listen to last week's, we were talking about how the Elohim were divided into the light and into the dark. In our process of maturation, we have to come full circle. We have to go from the light into the dark. And to do that, by going from into the light into the dark, we take our light into the darkness. The whole purpose of entering into the light through Mother's teaching is to have your heart pierced. Because when your heart is pierced, you feel everything. Because again, she teaches us to make sure that we are doing the golden rule, that we are going to treat people how we want to be treated. So therefore, when we enter into the darkness, the esoteric hidden teachings, we know that we will do no harm because our heart is pierced. So those deeper revelations and teachings where the real power is sustained through the language is meant for self-deliverance and self-empowerment, not to enslave people, not to lord over, not to be doing magical spells with the Hebrew language that are meant to subjugate people, but having that which was hidden within us to be revealed so we can be self-empowered. That is why it's so important. This hay is only given to those who have been selected to receive it, so that we can render everything clear, to be able to return and restore. So hold on to those words. This is all going to make sense when we get to the end of this. Let's see if I can turn, there we go. No more laser pointer. Let's move to the next screen. So now let's take a look at part of this word that is also in Brit, the Bet Resh. And here's all the meanings: pure, clean, innocent, cleanness, purity, winnowed grain, and son as heir apparent to the throne. Why would I put winnowed grain in there? Well, for some who have, and I know my friend Regina knows this, but for some who have been in Hebraic mindset, we know that there's discussion of the barley bride and the wheat bride. The barley is what matures first. It's the first of the first fruits. The wheat is the second of the first fruits. So the first of the first fruits being the barley, the way that you separate the barley from its chaff is you winnow it. Winnowing it means tossing it up in the air so that the air would blow away the chaff, and what would be remaining would just be the fruit, the seed of the barley, whereas wheat has to be threshed. It has to be beaten. So the first of the first fruits use the wind, which is ruach in Hebrew, which is spirit, in order to allow the removal of the chaff so that what remains is the fruit or the seed of that which the plant produced. And so the reason why they are the first of the first fruits is they listen to the nudging of the Spirit to produce the fruit that was within them, where the wheat bride will have to go through the threshing period in order to have that separated out. So hopefully you guys are connecting to that. So this word bar, did somebody have a question? I was hearing something. It's okay if you don't. I just was hearing some background. So this word bar is connected in brit. This is part of the covenant. So the covenant is to help us to become pure, clean, and innocent, having cleanness and purity as those who are the winnowed grain and not threshed, as heirs apparent to the throne. That's a big deal. So haven't had time in the language to see that even though this word bar is standing alone, the resonance frequency of this word is contained within brit. So we cannot set it aside and say it doesn't exist because the frequency is there. It is already within that word. Hopefully that makes sense. Because Hebrew and Aramaic are layered, they build upon themselves, and it's beautiful. It's a living language because these letters will come together and choose to collaborate to create a new frequency, and through the process of cymatics, affect matter. And if you don't know what cymatics is, it's CYMATICS. I highly suggest you doing a study on it because it's very fascinating. Hebrew, Aramaic, and Sanskrit are the only languages that affect matter through the study of cymatics, where the actual sound of the letter will, as it's being pronounced, and it is spoken to a microphone and it's placed when you're sand on an oscillating plate, will make shapes and forms of the letters in speaking it if you speak it properly. And those three languages are the only ones that do that. So they do affect matter. It is the language of creation, and it is connected to our DNA. And if you guys need to see that, I have videos on the YouTube channel that even show the science behind it and how science has actually found the sacred language, the letters in our DNA. That's a huge piece of it. And that's why I'm sharing it with you, because it is affecting us. It's affecting our vessel. It affects matter when we study it, when we ingest it. Now, here's the part that why Father, Abba, Source, Creator, Spirit wanted me to dig deep. The word that I just put up on the bottom of the screen, and I didn't mean to skip over that other stuff. I just have videos on it, and you can do your own research later, because I really want to drill down into this, have a discussion about it, and then go into the scripture. This is Barashit. This is the very first word that is written in the sacred texts in the book of Genesis. From Genesis 1:1, this is the first word. Now I'm gonna let your eyes look at the screen to see if you can see some similarities here, and I know you can, with the Bet Resh and the Yod and the Tav. But if you can't, let me do one little step here, and this might make it a little easier to see. Bet Resh Yod Tav, and what was remaining is Aleph Shin. Some of you who know a little bit of language have already seen this word before in some of my teachings, and you will be able to connect to this. This is the word for fire. This is Ish. Now remember, I was sharing with you and have been sharing with you that the seraphim messenger came to teach us in the system of duality. And what I love about what I see here, because it is of fire, what do we see here in the very first word? In a simple way of looking at it, what are we seeing with the first word in the Bible? It's the covenant of fire. So when we were connecting with Yod He, Shin Vav He, Yahuwah, that now has the fire Shin on the inside, manifesting as Yod He, Shin Vav He, Yahshua, we not only have the tetragrammaton of Yod He Vav He, Mother Father, activating with a light frequency within us, activating within us, now we have the presence of fire. But here is where we have an addition to the Sheen. So even Renee, when you were talking about when we were talking about the sheen being in the center of Yeshua and how it's connected to the heart. Look at this. This now has an aleph added in front of the sheen. This is one fire, or the fire that brings forth oneness, which is the covenant that was given at the very beginning. Oh my gosh, are you guys connecting? Because I was freaking out when I saw this. I don't know why. I had never seen this before. And I knew that the Spirit was needing this to come forward because, get this, I get on my Facebook page, and if you guys have seen anything that Jeff Button has posted, the very morning that the Spirit laid this on me, and I am looking at it, I'm writing it in my little notebook. I can even show it to you when we get off of sharing this screen, and I'll show you the, because I don't even know if you can see me while I'm sharing this, probably not. But I'm writing it in my notebook. I get on Facebook and he sends me a private message with this right here. What you're seeing on the screen right here. He's showing this to me. And it was like confirmation, synchronicity. So I knew that through confirmation, Spirit is saying you need to see this, because we're talking about Yod He Vav Te. We're talking about Yeshua. We're talking about the fire that is within us and is in the word Barashit, that is covenant of fire. Why I never saw this before, I guess I wasn't ready to see it, but I saw it, and now I'm sharing it with you guys because we need to understand what this word covenant is. It's not just a cliche. It's not a term that the church uses. There's very specific reasons why this was written this way and what it is conveying to us, because this fiery message of oneness consumes the lower beast ego nature, the ego that says we're separate. It's a consuming fire of God, of Elohim. So now seeing this as the fire that is within covenant. So here we have Barashit in the beginning. Now look at this. This is also contained in the first word. So we've already established this, the covenant of fire, one fire that deals with our lower flesh. Now this word, Rashit, means beginning, first fruits, choice, best part, leader, principality. And this comes, let me use my pointer here. Actually, I think I'll use the pen. This will make it a little easier. This word right here, this is the word Rosh, which means head. These are the constituent letters that make up this symbol right here, the Resh. And you've heard me say this before. This word, Resh, Aleph Shin, means head, top, first fruits, but it also means poor and destitute. So what are we talking about here? The covenant of fire is meant to raise up the poor and destitute into being the first fruits. This was established in the beginning. The choice and best part, leaders, principalities, and powers. So you've heard Ken and I, if you've listened to our teachings before in our excavations at dawn, we have been talking about how the principalities and powers are being flipped. That which once was is now being flipped, because those of us who are rising up into this are now raising our head above, no longer being controlled by the beast ego nature, raising into our own spiritual sovereignty, so that we no longer are being controlled and manipulated by our beast ego nature, rising up and out of the narratives in duality that have been holding us and separating us, because the one fire has come to raise the leaders up, the first fruits that were here in the beginning. This was the whole job of the Elohim, because if you remember, it's in the beginning created. Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, the leaders, the first fruits created, who were the Elohim. Now I've shared this with you in many of the videos on our channel. I've been sharing it for the last 2 Saturday mornings with Brandon. We've been discussing specifically that we are the Elohim. And this is a very difficult concept if we hold on to the Christian narrative, because they have put God way far outside of us, and that Yeshua is the only God and we are the servants thereof. But the scriptures show in the sacred writings that we are the Elohim, that we created all of this, that we're living it. We're the ones that made the mess. Now we're the ones that we get to clean it up. And it was declared in the beginning that this was what the whole plan was. I'm hoping that is, you guys are connecting dots. I can't see anybody right now because I'm in the slideshow, so it makes it difficult. But I will have time for comments. It's not a very long slideshow, so I will have time for comments when we get done with this here. So then look at this. Here's another word that's hidden, and this is sheath. And sheath means a foundation. So if the foundation has the sheen on it, then we know that it's a consuming fire foundation that is giving us the power necessary to be marked with the sign of the covenant. And what is the sign of the covenant? The frequency of fire. One love. Now, connect that to narratives about those who were thrown into the fiery furnace, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that were not burned because they had the frequency of fire. The fire didn't register them as fuel. They had the same frequency of fire as having become seraphim messengers. Angel morphology is a very real thing. And I shared with you guys before that the difference between Malach, king, and Malach, angel, is the Aleph is placed in the middle of the word. It means they've been instructed in the way of one. And Malach means messenger. It also means a teacher, a priest, and a prophet. That's what it means. We use it in English as an angel, and we get all messed up on that when it's really a messenger that is acting as a priest, as a prophet, and as a teacher that has oneness on the inside. And so here is the foundation that is being laid that gives us power to be marked with the covenant, because we have fire on the inside. So here is what this all comes out to be. In the beginning, those who created, founded, and built the first fruits as the choice and best part, leaders and principalities that were strong. These were the pure, clean, and innocent who would be winnowed as heirs apparent to the throne. A covenant of fire was created as a strong foundation, a choice to come together as a promise made by a deed, one fire within for those who would choose to feed this fire by what they eat, forming it on the inside. They are the Elohim. These are the Elohim from the beginning. Barashit means the beginning. The covenant of fire was taken out of them, and it just left us with the covenant, because we have to find the fire to become one on the inside, to let the consuming fire burn that away, which is our beast ego nature that tells us that we are separate. But the power is there to do it once we allow the fire within to do its job. Now look at this. This is the word for the end. Acharit. So in the beginning and the end. And what do we see here? This is so amazing. We see the Aleph here. Come on. Ah! Sorry, got ahead of myself. I have to hit the buttons very lightly. Here we go. So we have the Aleph that is here on the front, and we have the Het. You want to hear, you've heard about the brotherhood before, or you've heard that phrase. Aleph Het means brother or brotherhood. So in the end, everyone will become one because they found life as those who were once set apart, raised up, Rosh, to be first fruit leaders, principalities and powers that were once poor and destitute, having been given the power from the Father and marked with the sine wave, signature frequency wave of the covenant. And what is the covenant? It is the fire of consuming, or the consuming fire. That's what this is. the consuming fire of oneness that is found on the inside. Now, remember how I said that the Old Testament, or we were talking about testament, is covenant? This would be how you would say Old Testament, the Brit Kadam. And Kadam means, this is what this would mean: the covenant of antiquity established from the beginning. That is what Old Testament means. The covenant of antiquity established from the beginning. Barashit. New Testament is Brit Chadashah. Now, if you were in the Hebrew Roots movement, they would say that this is the, how would they say that? The restored covenant. They would say that Brit Chadashah, New Testament translated in English, means the renewed covenant. But Chadashah, this is what you get when you really look at the meaning. The covenant of antiquity established from the beginning, restored and repaired. Restored and repaired. Because it is only one. It is not two. There is not a covenant that was old, and there is not a covenant that is new. It is one covenant that was given from the beginning, Barashit, to raise up the first fruit leaders. Now let's go a little bit further in here. It's one testament, one covenant of fire, the promise given, restoration of all into one. This phrase right here is Eye Asher Eye. Any wild guess of what that is? If you guys have watched many videos and teachings, you would already know. Eye Asher Eye. I am that I am. The word where we would say that has the word fire in it. This is fire upon the head. This word also means the happy and the fortunate ones. But there's something else that is hidden in here as well. That word that is in the center with the ish resh, the fire upon the head, we also have something else within it. We have the word shin resh, which means sar. This is a prince or princess. This is a royal one. This is royalty. One who is of royalty. So you can connect this to Melchizedek, kings and queens of righteousness, who have fire upon their heads because they've been raised up to be first fruit leaders. They are I am that I am. But notice this root right here, Hey Yod Hey. So let me get my little pen out here again so that I can write on here. This is the root to the tetragrammaton Yod Hey, Vav Hey, Yahuwah. This is the root form. And it means to be, to come, and come to pass. And what has been added on it, added to the prefix, is the Aleph. This is oneness. So when you say I am, we all connect that to Creator. But the delineation of comprehending Eye Asher Eye is that you are one with all things. All things. So when we come to the place of saying I am, if oneness is not been manifest within you first, then we don't have the truth residing within us that we are one, because this is about connecting that which was divided within us, the light and the dark that was divided within us, into oneness on the inside out. That is the Mashiach, Christ anointing. Oneness on the inner side that manifests outside, which is the place that you would see as it manifesting as unconditional love. And we have to have the covenant of the fire that makes us pure and innocent. It's that which we feed upon that forms this process within us so that we can be raised up to the first fruit leaders that are the principalities in power over this realm, because we are no longer in the system of duality. We are rising above the system of duality, rising up, raising our head above as becoming one with the fire, one covenant that connects I am that I am to the beginning. And then at the end, we will see it manifested as one who has found life that was once separated, that is a first fruit leader that has been given power through the covenant that was given at the beginning, the restored, repaired covenant, not divided, not the old and the new, but one, the covenant of one love. That is so fascinating for me when I saw that, because I had never seen it before. And all the times I had been looking at Genesis 1:1, I never saw the fire inside of covenant until yesterday morning. And I was freaking out. I wrote it in my notebook as I was in my meditation time, and I couldn't wait to share it with Ken. And that it's one life in one love. Do you guys have any comments on that? Anything you want to share? Anything new about that? Did it make sense? Did you connect to it? Do I need to explain it in a different way? I'm opening it up. So if you guys have anything to say, you can raise your hand, and I'd love to hear from you. If not, we can connect and go a little further. Yes, Aaron.
Interesting. I was just looking at the word life, and you said at the end you found life, and it's literally in that word, the end. It's the, I don't remember what it's called, but if you go back to the end where you have that on your slide.
It's acharit. Acharit, and it is.
Yeah, and life is kai, and that is spelled het yod, and het yod is in the word, the end. Life is in the end.
It is.
When you find this and you build this.
It's het yod, and it has the resh right in the middle. So those who have found life have raised themselves up from the poor and destitute place they were in to be a first fruit leader. And what that means is that what keeps us poor and destitute is our beast ego. It keeps us in lower vibrations where we are being manipulated and controlled through fear. And I've shared that before, that it's really the ego sits on top of our amygdala, which controls us through fear. And that is known as the seat or the throne of the brain. And that keeps us from the Christ anointing. The beast ego is Antichrist. So that word, like you just said, has kai with the resh right in the middle, which means that we now are the head over our body that is controlling us instead of our own beast ego doing it. So you are your own sovereign over yourself. Did you have another question, Aaron, or a comment?
Well, it's interesting how one word, and you talk about all the covenant and life and everything right now is just like rushing through my head. It's funny because one of the words for life was in some of the stuff I was looking at. They suggested it was mistranslated. The word life should have been brotherhood or kinship or kinfolk. And you just said, and Aleph Het is brother or brotherhood. And so life is also in that word as well. And it's just everything's tying together, and almost like the
It's
very
amazing.
first word of the Bible is just amazing.
I know. I mean, literally, the whole gospel message, if you want to put it that way, because that's a term that we're all familiar with, the whole gospel message is found within the first word. Literally, everything that you need to know about our journey here is in Genesis 1:1. The whole thing in Genesis 1:1, it sums it up. Like if you only had one verse that you can memorize that you could write out in Hebrew and teach from, it's right there. And then all you need to know is you need to know the word acharit that we just were discussing, Zarin. So you can put the word beginning and then covenant and then the end. And you wouldn't need to teach anything more than that. Because that's really the summary of the entire journey. Because in the beginning we were once one, and then we became divided, Genesis 1:4, so that we could then experience and then become united again by uniting the light and the dark that is within us into oneness unity, bringing it all back together into one. So again, it was for sake of experience that it was divided. And so I shared some stuff this morning. If you guys missed the conversation I had with Brandon, if you get a chance this week to go listen to it, I did share a little bit more about Genesis 1:4 that the Spirit was laying on me about why we were divided and the importance of what it was, and why it manifested the way it did and where we are now. I love that these revelations are surfacing now, because it's like, we need to know this now. These energies are coming in. We're ready to receive this information because it's more of a confirmation, because you guys are already getting a lot of this on your own. All you have to do is go within and all the answers are found. And the languages are just backing us up so that we know that through spirit that we are hearing these things. You know, some of it sounds totally against what the narrative have been given to us through, is because I've now seen a little bit of the difference between what is coming out now versus the New Age movement, because I've had people come and say that we're that we're teaching New Age. And it's sad because I've had my husband and I have really close friends that we don't talk too much anymore, that were with us with with our Crisis Response International journey. I mean, we're talking like 11 years ago. And I don't think this is, what's divided us at all, because, life gets in the way, and there's family and grandkids and weddings and all that. And I get that. But I remember when I was sharing with my girlfriend about it, she was saying, you sound like you're New Age. You sound like you're New Age. The different face or deal with the negative side of it, the dark side of it. It doesn't exist. Everything's good. If we just keep high vibes, positive vibes, don't look over there, don't do this, don't look at the evil, don't look at the dark, then, everything's just high vibes. Just keep it there. The trouble is with that, if you don't deal with your own darkness on the inside, you can't render it clear. You are actually casting out part of that which is you, right? Because we have the potential of good and evil. And I shared a little bit of that. So if you guys were on earlier, this is a little bit of repetition, but it's connected to this covenant, and then taking it into Genesis 1:4, that we have to go through this to render everything clear, because that was part of what I was sharing with you guys about rendering everything clear. Part of the word bara, which is found in the vibrational frequency of Barashit, we have to render everything clear in order to restore it back to the beginning, Barashit, the one covenant of one fire that unites us in what we create. Because really, part of that word too, bara, to create, it's betresh, so heirs to the throne, that are creating oneness. They build it on the inside. They raise themselves up into oneness unity. That's how we create. That's how we're creating order out of chaos. Because we have been creating things in our ignorance by not uniting ourselves on the inside. So that which is coming out of us and what we are seeing reflected in the mirror of our reality is the chaos that has been manifesting on the outside from our inside, because we didn't render it clear. Could you imagine how much this world would change if everybody did their own inside shadow work and they brought it into oneness unity? our world would be an entirely different place, because we wouldn't have the duality dueling on the inside of us. Because we would take the higher nature and the lower nature and we would bring it together and connect it in the middle, which is literally, I just gave you what the aleph is. The yod from the top, the yod from the bottom, connecting together into oneness. So that's even united in the chakras, the upper chakras from the 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and then you have the middle candle. It's called the Shemesh candle, the servant candle. But it's also, guys, the same word for sun, as in S-U-N, Shemesh. And it's sheen, mem, or sheen, mem, sheen. So the two fires on the outside that deal with the chaotic waters on the inside. So the fiery covenant deals with the chaotic waters on the inside, so that we can then deal with our heart as the servant candle, that is the light that then activates all the other chakras of our lower and our higher, uniting them so that we become the lampstand. We become the menorah. And when you look in the New Testament, light is Nura, Nun Vav Resh Aleph, Nura, which is part of the menorah, but it doesn't have the waters of chaos in it anymore, because it's menorah. The waters of chaos have been removed, and all you have is light. Nura, be the light of the world, the Nura of the world. And it has an aleph on the end. It's the spiritual path for those who have connected at their heart, raising them up from their poor and destitute state into oneness unity. You become one with the light. That is the whole message of what Yeshua was trying to do. Because here's the deal, when we get out of duality, I'm trying to take this concept so we can really grasp a hold of this. When we come out of duality, all there is light. There is no darkness. Light is information. Light is love. There are no biases. It is unconditional. So when you are the light of the world, the light doesn't discriminate. Look at what sunlight does. It shines on everything. It doesn't go, ooh, that's evil over there, so I'm going to not shine my light on there. It doesn't discriminate. It gives it sunlight everywhere that it shines. There is no discrimination. It is a light frequency that is a carrier wave that gives us frequencies into our body to communicate with us, and it doesn't discriminate. We discriminate. The light doesn't. So Nura means the light of one. And there's only one truth, and there's only one light. It's in the system of duality that it gets perverted and twisted and separated into the light and the dark. For comparisons, this or that. Positive energy or a negative energy, that does not mean good or evil. Those are labels that we put on it through a religious system that would keep us from the truth. Because really, Yod He Vav He is positive and negative. Positive frequency is masculine energy. Negative energy is feminine energy, but that doesn't mean that the feminine energy is evil or bad. It just means it's negative. How do you have something that draws and unites? Positive and negative. Have you ever seen the toroidal field created by a horseshoe magnet? It's because where the two are, the positive and the negative, creates its own electromagnetic toroidal field that draws. Why do you think that Yeshua drew people to himself? because he had found oneness within him, that he had a spiritual gravity about him that was drawing people because his toroidal fields were activated in unconditional love, which is drawing all men unto himself instead of repelling, because it was unconditional love that saw them for who they were and not what the system of duality had put them in opposite poles that were dueling. I love you regardless, because I am not judging you. You are me and I am you. I have darkness in me. I have light in me. I've rendered it all clear. And that's what the whole purpose is of covenant. Barashit. It is one flame, one love, consuming the beast ego nature that says we're separate, so that is a unified ego. Now, guys, we're never going to get rid of the ego while we're in a flesh suit, because as long as I'm in a flesh suit, its name is Carrie, and it looks like a female, and it weighs X amount of pounds, and it has long hair, right? That is the part that I play here. But I'm also male. And in a previous incarnation to this one, I was a male. I had the fortunate opportunity to know about my previous incarnation, because all of the trauma, there was a lot that spilled over into this one that was connected to the previous one. And that's why I was able to see it. But I was a male, and I held the negative pole. So dark and light reside in me. It's potentiality of going to the light or going to the dark, because we were divided, and it's all through free will. Free will is put here through ego to choose positive pole or negative pole, your choice. That's what free will is. And somebody has to hold the negative pole. You know, all of us here, we're like bypassing, or because we've become mothers teaching, we're not going to hurt anyone. We already understand that. We're not going to hurt our neighbor. We're not going to hurt our loved ones. We're going to do our best because we don't want that to come back upon us. We already have mother's mark. But somebody had to come in and hold the negative pole for us to understand what duality looks like. And they're still our brothers and sisters. We all have that potential. We are born into this system. We are born as pure individuals that are in extreme, the highest consciousness level that you can have when you come in is as an infant, as a newborn. Because that newborn, when it comes out, does not judge. We're only taught how to judge here. That newborn is pure consciousness, pure awareness at the highest level of Christ anointing possible. The Mashiach, as soon as they come out of the mother's womb. This is why we're told to go back as little children, because little children, when they come out, they have no bias. They just are as I am is. They're just awareness. The beautiful part is that when we get to go through the process in the shadow work, we can return back, because the kingdom is within, and we need to enter in as a little child. And that was a code to let us know that we have to get rid of our biases. I mean, think about the carefree days of being a little child. You didn't care what political party was in office. You did not care. But I was outside climbing trees, playing in the mud. I was doing everything. I could care less about that. There was no duality. It was the sun was out and I was going to have fun and experience it. That's all that mattered. Now, did I have trauma in there too? Yeah. But there were days that I wasn't thinking about the trauma. I was being a kid and I was enjoying life. I was in awareness of what was going on, and I would lay for hours staring and studying the clouds because they were just so doggone beautiful. And the sky was so blue without chemtrails. And even if I was a kid and there were chemtrails, I wouldn't have known. They were just saying, hey, there's different clouds. No bias. We were taught all of this. So now we're unraveling it so that we can restore it through the first covenant, Barashit, to restore it to the way it was in the beginning. So at the end, we are those who have found life. We are one life that has been raised up, having power, being marked with that covenant that was established at the beginning, the covenant of the fire, seraphim, given to us by Yod He Shin Vav He. the seraphim that came to show us the way to get us out of the matrix so that we could raise up into oneness, unity, out of duality. That is deliverance. No longer being part of that game. That was a lot. Any comments? Thanks, Regina. It changes everything if we have somebody explain it to us, because nobody did from the beginning. That's why we got in such a mess. Yes, Greg. Or are you just applauding?
I was clapping.
Thank you. Ready for it yet?
I had a question.
Okay, thank you.
It's
yes, please, Renee.
I gotta track back now. What saw jug that? The infants being the purest consciousness, and can't help it, but I was thinking about what happens to babies that become aborted. Do they have to keep coming back until they can have this journey of duality? Or, I mean, you probably don't know that, but
well, let me throw this at you. Based upon like Dolores Cannon's work and some other people that I've listened to just try to grasp a hold of reincarnation, because again, when reincarnation came in my world, it's when I began having memories, and I didn't even believe in reincarnation. So what do you do with that? I mean, I literally thought I needed to go into the nut house, because I'm remembering things that I experienced that weren't in this incarnation, and I didn't know what to do with it, because I didn't have, when these things started happening, I literally didn't have anything based upon my indoctrination that this was doctrines of demons. Holy crap, Batman, what do you do with that? So I had to start researching it, and I am so thankful I stumbled on Dolores Cannon, because what the heck am I going to do? It's like, okay, I've been studying the sacred languages for 3 years, and now I get to go to the loony bin. Oh, this has been a fun journey. Thank you, Creator. But it was because these things were surfacing in me, because I had to know these things in order to heal, because I had fractured out in so many pieces that I had parts of me that were trapped in other incarnations that hadn't been set free because there was trauma associated to them. And they were literally living like in a hell loop over and over and over and over and over again, until I released them and pulled that piece back to me. So, having said that all, there has been many stories of people incarnating into a life because of that which they did in the previous life, and we would know this is karma. So let me ask you this. How many babies were born or not born because they were abortion doctors? Okay, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying that is, I'm just throwing that out there. Based on Dolores Cannon's work and some other people that, and I don't remember the other gentleman, I actually saw an interview with him, and he was like the pioneer of like the work that Dolores Cannon did, and was sharing things. And it really blew my mind of the possibilities. And I had to be able to have something to understand why. So I'm going to share something here with you guys. In my previous incarnation, I held the negative pole. I was a very, very dark entity. In fact, I was so dark that I was into the left-hand path and didn't go into the right-hand path. I dabbled in the dark arts. I dealt with dark magic. I was a male, and I had no heart. When this memory came back to me, and I only had a fragment of it, it's not like I saw the whole lifetime. It was like I had a moment that I could touch it, and all this information was available, and then I saw it so that I could release it. So it wasn't like I had this horrific lifetime that I relived this whole thing like a movie. I was able to touch the frequency, and I was so freaked out because I couldn't feel my heart. I couldn't feel my heart. There was nothing going on in here. Doesn't mean that the physicality of it beating. It means that there was no emotional attachment whatsoever. And as an entity, I was awful. I abused women. I was very, very narcissistic. I was a psychopath. Now, I wasn't given a name. I wasn't given a location. I was only able to touch the energy. But the reason why it was freeing for me is because this life has been touched by so many narcissists, and I have been hurt by so many narcissists, and I have been physically, sexually abused, and things that happened to me in this lifetime that were what would have been what my other incarnation did to women. So in this incarnation, I had to live it. Now, what was freeing for me, I actually laughed. When at first I was horrified, but then I started laughing because I was like, of course that makes sense. All of a sudden I looked at every single narcissistic relationship in my life, all the abuse that I suffered, and I started chuckling. I was like, oh, how funny. Karma's a bitch. I get it. I get it. And yes, I said that. I did say that.
You reap what you sow. That's
Exactly.
context. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm being very transparent, and I'm probably going to get people that may not be making nice comments because I'm talking about reincarnation. I'm talking about a previous life. But these are things that if we do not understand how the way things work, we are never going to be able to find the way to render everything clear to get out of this matrix of duality. Somebody has to hold the negative pole. And in my previous lifetime, I held the negative pole. I lived a life without love. I lived a life without my heart chakra, so that in this life, I could fully open it and I could render that clear to realize that I was divided as Elohim into light and dark. And I was able to see what it was like to take the left-hand path without going through mother's experience first. Because when we take our light into the dark, we get revealed the true essence of who we are, so we can deal with our shadow side, render it clear, because we take our light into it with our heart fully engaged and opened, learning these things for the spiritually mature so that we can restore and return back home. Butter sheet, one fire, one love, one covenant. I hope that makes sense. And, you know, transparency, I don't always like talking about this stuff, but, you know, doggone it, if I can't be real with you guys, then how can I help establish an area where we can all trust one another if I'm not willing to open myself up to you first? I wouldn't want to ask that of anybody else if I'm not willing to do it. And I don't really attach myself to those storylines anymore. I mean, I can talk about it openly, and I don't have any shame attached to it because I don't attach to those narratives, and I don't judge myself. I mean, I've allowed forgiveness to flow through me and find unconditional love for myself because of what I know through the sacred languages and what I've experienced and the healing. I mean, I'm not fractured anymore. I don't have multiple personalities. I don't have PTSD anymore, because I did the work. I allowed the languages to come in and heal me, collect all my pieces so that I can be whole, so I can share it with you. And I think it's important for these testimonies to go forward, to see why. I mean, why the heck do we want to study the languages? Well, if you've been fractured or been broken at all, it's a great way to heal. It's a really good way to heal. I'll be the first to give the testimony, and I've already shared it several times. And that's what I added. That's what I added to the mix. And I adopted meditation, which meditation and the languages go hand in hand, because you're supposed to take a word and pull it on the inside and meditate upon it and see what the spirit says to you. So it reveals light to help you shed light into your dark areas so that you can render them clear and be able to do your shadow work. We can't run away from that side of us. It is part of us. It is part of the creator. I created the light and I created the darkness. I am he who created both. You can't ignore that side. Does that make sense? Are we good? You're following that? Do you guys have any comments? Okay. So having said all of that, I would like to jump into our short little verse. Now that we have covenant established, what that looks like, let's jump into the verse. I turned off the air conditioning and my room is getting really warm. So if you start seeing some perspiration beads, it's just because the air conditioning is too noisy. Okay. Sharing the screen. Now let's get into, oh, well, it helps if I get out of the slideshow. That doesn't help. Hold, please. Get out. There we go. I just laughed at myself. Okay. So today, the verse that we are going to be covering is Matthew 13:12. Now I can share it. Now I've got it all pulled up on my side, so we're going to be just fine. This verse says, "For unto him who hath, it shall be given, and it shall be increased to him."
Vertical.
I'm going to bring it up a little bigger. I know that if you guys are on PCs, you probably don't need this, but it helps me to see it bigger too.
Like
So
she
hold on
said.
just a second here. There we go. I hear you, Lemoyne. Are you wanting to share something, or did you just turn your speaker on, turn your microphone on?
No. Oh, somehow I unmuted. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Got it. All right. So Matthew 13:12. Now I wanted to show something to you because I found this very interesting that King James did this. They took Matthew 13:12 and 13:13 and they ended up lumping it all together. So look at this here. So this verse is, "For unto him who hath, it shall be given, and it shall be increased to him." King James has very similar, "and it shall be given," but then they added the next verse to verse 12. So whoever hath, to him it shall be given, and it shall have in more abundance. Okay, that's verse 12. But 13, "But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he hath." Now, I don't know about you, but I'm really circumspect when I see things like that, because this is verse 13. I haven't broke it down, but they decided to put it all within 12. Like, I don't really get that. I'm not sure exactly why they wanted to do that, but they did do it. So I'm just pointing that out to you because whenever King James does that, I'm very, very, very hesitant and need to take a step back because of how much that influenced that they would say that this was the only authorized version out there. And how dare you if you look at another Bible that isn't the King James version, when really it was all changed from the original languages anyway. So let's look at the first word and see what's going on here. So in the first word, so underneath the Hebrew letters that I've used, this is Janet McGeara's mechanical translation. So she's forced it into the English words, word by word, and I didn't put hers up on the top here. So hers is as we go. So he and he who. We have a lamed added on front because the root of it is memnoon. So the memnoon is what we see right here. So the lamed has been added. And again, I know you guys have seen this, but through inculcation, and if I have anybody new, the lamed is the rod of the teacher, and it speaks of authority. The word lamed, lamed mem dalet, which is how we actually spell this symbol through the constituent letters, means to accustom, to learn, learned, studied, put together, compiled, brought together, connected to teach, was trained, study, and knowledge. So in other words, a person who has been given the staff of authority to be able to speak, having the rod of the teacher, is one who has done a whole lot of work. Because the implication is that there was a studying and putting together and compiling all this information and bringing it together in order to teach, because they were raised up and trained in it and they have the knowledge, so therefore they teach. But the base origin of this word means to learn, prick, sting, incite, and goad. So a teaching shepherd, and notice that this is on the prefix, so this is mother here. This is a teaching shepherd of mother. And mother's job first is to tame the beast ego nature by second, piercing the heart. Again, Mother's job is to help get that heart chakra activated, because it's when we have the heart chakra activated that we can then fulfill the golden rule. Because I don't want to harm another person, because my heart is their heart. So if I don't want to harm them, it's because I don't want harm done to me. Hopefully that makes sense. So mother has actually the hardest job. And when we were talking before, I remember there was a comment, I think Renee, you were talking about it on Facebook, about explaining about what mother and father is. And we were talking about the spiritual side of Yod He Vav He. But in a perfect world, we would have parents that would be teaching these teachings of mother and father. So you would literally have a birth mother that would be teaching the divine masculine in the golden rule to their children, who would have the rod of authority that would be taming the beast ego nature, teaching the child, helping to activate the heart to subject and control the beast ego so that they could go into the father's teaching of the divine feminine, which is the hidden esoteric teachings where they then can find life fully by going on the inside. That is how that would work. So you would literally have the parents as teaching shepherds of light that have the rod of authority.
Let me stop you for a moment here. Okay, so let's look at the natural. A lot of children don't have father, mother,
Right.
upbringing. So are they doomed to repeat this cycle over and over?
Heck no. Heck no.
How do they come into mother's teaching? Like
By
through
going
the
within.
English Bible?
You know what? Look at how many of you, including yourself, have had these incredible revelations on your own.
Yeah, but isn't that father's teaching?
It's mother and father's teaching. How did you learn how to treat people? Did the spirit help guide you and realize that you didn't want to hurt people?
Yeah.
You don't need the sacred writings to do this. You don't need it at all. You literally do not need parents. You can be an orphan and you can learn all of this, because Yod He Vav He, mother and father as the Elohim of this realm, Lord God, is the teaching shepherds of light in the spirit that will instruct you on the inside.
Okay. I guess where the confusion is with distinguishing mother and father, I'm kind of looking, okay, who is the father? Who's the mother here? But I guess they're all working, spirit is fluent.
Yes.
I guess, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. So the spirit will teach us all things if we choose to go within to be instructed. Now, in a perfect world, if we had had parents that were instructed in the teachings of mother and father through the sacred languages, they would be then in turn teaching their children as a physical representation of the manifestation of Yod He, Vav He, manifested as Yod He, Shin Vav He, because they would be bringing the fiery message of the one covenant to their children, raising them up in the way they should go. That's in a perfect world. We're not there yet, but that's why these teachings are going out, because we are being instructed so that we can teach the younger generation, so that when they have children, they can teach their children. I think this has been a huge missing piece. But, I'm biased. I love the languages. They're a part of me. So what's going on here is we have a teaching shepherd that is teaching manna, our daily manna. So remember when I was sharing with you about covenant, about selecting what they would choose to feed their fire with on the inside, because that was within the definition of Barashit. They would choose what to feed the fire on the inside through their daily manna. So in other words, instruction comes through the manna. Now, do you need to have the sacred writings? No. You can go and get the information you need by going within. But for those of you who love the word, who love to be instructed that way, everything that you need is in the sacred writings. And man, it means what is it, but it also means to be part of, like a chord, a string instrument. So think about the vibrational frequency that happens from like strumming a harp or even playing keys on a keyboard. It's interesting to note that if you play on keys on a keyboard, and let's say you play a C chord, that will vibrate the other strings that you didn't play in higher octaves, and you will hear the resonance of those strings that never even got touched because they began to vibrate within the same frequency. Trying to connect that, because we were talking about a chord last week, about dimensions and talking about densities. So we're vibrating out, that is connecting in frequencies that are higher and lower, connecting them together to be a part of together. Now, this is an Aramaic root that means to make a disciple, disciple, instruct, teach, lamed mem. To make a disciple, to instruct, to teach. And it's important when we see these things, because if we don't see these things, then we're not going to know that this vibrational frequency is there resonating within the word. We can't glance over this. This is talking about making a disciple, to instruct and to teach. And lamed mem means namely, clearly, and surely. Moving on further, the next word translated as for is the word ger, which means a sojourner, a foreigner, or an alien that will be given the power within. Now, something I shared earlier that we need to connect the dot here, and I'm not going to belabor it, but it's important that you guys can connect this. In Gematria, Aleph has the value of 1 or 1,000. The Yod has a value of 10. Now, the reason why this is important, in toroidal math or reduction math, where you take numbers and you reduce them to a single digit, the Aleph and the Yod would be the same, because Aleph as 1 or 1,000, you would odd out all the zeros and it still is 1. The Yod, if you odd out the 0 from the 10, it's still 1. The Aleph and the Yod are connected together, and that makes sense because the Aleph has 2 Yods. It has an upper Yod and a lower Yod that are connected together. So when you see the Yod, it is connected. So when I share with you that this means power, means, and direction, which is actually part of the definition of Yad, of the root for Yod, it's the power, means, and direction to enter into oneness unity. The power, means, and direction that has been given on the inside for the sojourner and the foreigner who is traveling through, that is gathering which is necessary, the instructions, the living water teachings that will lift them up, to wean them and to ripen them, to raise them out of their poor and destitute place so that they become the first fruit leaders. Now, when we move into the next word, we have is and are. Is and are. But look at this here. This is and are is directly connected to Aleph Yod Tav, which is connected to Aleph Tav. Aleph Tav is the way you would see this manifested in the Tanakh, the Brit Chadam, the Old Testament. Aleph Yod Tav is how it is in the Brit Chadashah, the New Testament. The reason it's different is because of the Yod. It is added on the inside. So Aleph Tav, as a summary of the language, the Aleph Tav, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Please connect dots here. The beginning and the end, Bereshit Akarit. Yod is the power that is placed within you that gives you the means and direction to become one on the inside through the sacred languages. And the door is added because it's the Dalit. The door must be opened up to you to go on the inside to take the languages within. And again, a door can be represented by a teaching shepherd of light that becomes the door for you because they did it themselves, and then they instruct you by saying, go within, go within, go within. Open the door to the inside of your heart because it is meant to activate the heart chakra, because that is where you are going to have the instructions needed to reveal to you that which is hidden. So to answer your question, Renee, All the answers that you ever need are found within you. It will be revealed to you. The hidden will be revealed to you. That's why so many people are getting these revelations now, in the time now, because Spirit is revealing that which once was hidden in this time to be revealed. So connect dots. If you've been following me for a while, the word Gileana is the word for the book of Revelation, and it means to reveal that which was hidden and covered, known as the apocalypse, known as, because that's Greek for the revealing. Gileana is the revealing of that which was hidden and is being uncovered. And that's why this hey is added to the suffix side, because it is a standing lamed. The rod of the teacher who has authority, who is coming to release and reveal the hidden teachings, because they've studied, they put together, they compiled, they connected, and they're to teach. But some of this is going to prick you, sting you, incite you, and goad you to do what? To go on the inside. The first and the last, the beginning and the end. Barashit Akarit. Find the power within you, because the Aleph is then there and the Yod is giving you the ability to find it. That's when we activate the Mashiach, the Christ anointing. The Christ anointing isn't automatic. You must find it, and you must activate it, and you must become it. Now moving on to give. Woo, this room is getting hot. This is a really amazing, I'm trying to find other words here, so I'm speaking slowly instead of saying fascinating. This is an amazing way that this was written, because other words could have been used. The word that they used here is Yahav. And I know I've shared this before on one of our other teachings. I'm not sure which one it was. I don't know if it was with Regina or if it was in this series already. So if you've heard it again, just consider this inculcation as repetition, so that we can get this within us. Yahav means to give, but so does the word Natan. The reason why Yahav is given is because this word has an expectation with it. The expectation is that which is being given is meant to produce and yield and bear fruit. And why is that? Because it's the power, means, and direction that we already know is connected to the oneness unity. The power, means, and direction that will reveal how to build yourself on the inside. So it wasn't Natan, which is the seed of life, the covenant that is given to the fallen flesh, because this is really about dealing with the flesh. This is about dealing with you on the inside. So Natan would be what mother is giving you. Yahav is what father would be giving you, because mother is on the external orientation about your surroundings. So in other words, when you're in spiritual adolescence, you're oriented to the God that is outside of you, because you're not mature enough to understand who you are as Elohim. You can't be telling a 3-year-old that they're Elohim, especially if they're in the beast ego nature. Oh my gosh. Doesn't work. So that is mother's job, is to give you the spiritual path, the covenant that is connected to the fallen flesh for the external orientation. So you have reverence, strong respect for God that is outside of you, because really that is being represented by your mother and father in a perfect world. And you think about, in a perfect world, look at how kids esteem their parents if they haven't had to suffer at the hand of abuse. It's like, oh, they're amazing. They walk on water, right? Well, that's because mother and father in the flesh are supposed to be a representation of that. But they have to have gone through their own process of maturation. And this is why, because we haven't been taught it, we haven't gone through spiritual maturation, we get married, we have kids, and we make messes because we're still adolescents. We're still children. And we're broken, so we're breaking things. So this was written with Yahav, which means to give back, to grant, allow, put in place, and set, in order for it to produce, bear, and yield fruit. because this is an idiom. And like I've shared with you before, it's written here if you want to read it about what an idiom is. This is one of those words that is a Hebrew idiom. I find it interesting as well that we've got the word come here. That it's coming to give to you, and it will be given to you. What is it? Well, what is added on the front is Nun Tav, the spiritual path of the covenant. So again, to connect covenant to Bereshit, the fiery covenant in the beginning. The spiritual path is meant to lead you to the covenant of Mother, which is her fire. Remember, seraphim divided, Yod He Shin, Vav He. This is Mother's fiery covenant that is being given to you so that you know how to treat people with respect and honor. And then the rest shall be given to you. Because this giving is the spiritual maturation message, because it takes you on the inside. It reveals to you what is on the inside of you. So that, why? Look at this. Now we have that Lamed Hey again, so that you can be instructed again with the revelation that has been hidden from you. Because that revelation is meant for you on the inside. But guaranteed, it's going to prick and sting and goad and incite you. Because all of these things that are esoteric and hidden that are being brought forth to the light right now, because we're taking our light into it, is showing us the glaring things of that which has held us back and is no longer serving us anymore. So when we look at the English narratives that hold us into duality and hold us into these storylines that we need to desperately divorce ourselves from, holding into these narratives, it's never bringing forth oneness unity, because we need the instruction. And the problem with that is, if you are in the deconstruction phase of walking out of those dualistic teachings, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna prick you, it's gonna sting you, and there's probably gonna be a whole lot of frustration, anger, and tears. How do I know? Because I've experienced myself. And how do I know? Because I have talked to many others who are going through the same exact thing. The same exact thing. I know several, and I'm not going to be mentioning any names here, because you know who you are and you know what you've been wrestling with. And a lot of it is connected to the English narratives that are holding us to the system of duality. So these hidden esoteric teachings, the Father's teaching, has to be released, but it is coming to you through someone who has been instructed through it, that have compiled it, brought it together, have been able to connect it. They can teach it. They were trained, they've studied, and they have knowledge in it. And you can tell when somebody has knowledge in it because you can feel the truth vibrational frequency within it. How many people stand up with messages that are hollow and you can feel it? It's like they're not even convinced of the own words that they're speaking, because a lot of times they're regurgitating a message that they learned from a seminary school that they don't truly believe, but it is that which they have been told to teach and instruct, but it doesn't resonate with them. Resonate. They don't have the vibrational frequency matching to it because it isn't truth. The betrothed are of be truth, and they speak that truth. And again, truth doesn't choose sides. It just is. It's just information. Dependent upon how you respond to the information will let you know where you are in your spiritual maturation process. Is it pricking you? Is it stinging you? Is it inciting you? Is it goading you? A teaching shepherd's job is not easy, because a lot of times they are the ones that suffer the backlash of the prick and the sting. But because they've gone through it, they have much compassion. Now, the word for he will have an abundance. Yitr. The root is Yod Tavresh. Here's some of the definitions: gain, remain over, abound, prefer, benefit. But look at these other things: win, excel, be left over, grow, increase, have excess, profit. And I found this super fascinating because it really is the word Natan. Okay, so right here that I was sharing with you is mother's giving. Many times when it's written, it will have one of the noons removed, and it's usually the fallen noon. So it is written as Nun Tav, the spiritual path of the covenant, with no fallen noon. Guess what? That's right here. So those who have connected to Mother, who are teachable and humble, that have chosen the spiritual path, having been given her mark of the covenant, are then given the power, means, and direction of the oneness unity to have the second covenant that will raise them up from being poor and destitute into a first fruit leader. This will cause growth, increase, excess, profit, to excel, and really abounding, or to remain over, or to be left over. That means there's an abundance. Think about leftovers. I have leftovers because I had so much food that I didn't eat it all. I wanted to point out some things. I can't see what's going on with the dogs. You're just going to have to listen to Mishka in the background. So I don't know what she's barking at. It's just me and the dog here at the house. So Mother's covenant, that which was given to us, is meant for us to have profit, to benefit from, to grow and increase. Now, I threw a couple of these things in because I was taking a look at how the word is broken down and when letters are added to it. So this is just to show you the difference of why when letters are added and deleted, why they make such a huge difference. If this word was Yod, Tav, Resh with an Aleph on the end, it would mean superiority, abundance, extraordinary, important, surpassing, and familiar. I hope you guys are connecting to that. Yitara, if it had the Aleph on the suffix, oneness, unity, Mashiach, Christ anointing, it means superiority, abundance, extraordinary, important, and surpassing. If it was Yitar with Aleph Yod Tav, this guy, if Aleph Yod Tav was added on the back of it, it would mean more, rather, especially, much more, further, all, that's supposed to be the more, typo, all the more, greatly, very much, most, well, exceedingly, abundantly, and increasingly. So in other words, if Aleph Yod Tav had been added on here, if you are going through the teachings of the Aleph through the Tav through Father's teachings, it makes you a being that has substance, that has been given power on the inside, and it is going to further you all the more than where you already at. Exceedingly, abundantly, and increasingly. So this is what happens when these words are written in the form and fashion that they are written, because all of this stuff has extra information that changes it, and the authors would choose how they would want to. The focus on this word, however, was on the prefix side, about connecting to Mother first, the spiritual path that will lead you. And again, we have the covenant of the pieces here. We have Tav Yod Tav. We have two Tavs. Think of the covenant of the pieces, which we were talking about, like the animals being split apart. So Yod He, Vav He, split apart with the fire coming through the middle, Yeshua, is the fiery message that came between the pieces to bring forth the covenant of promise, to restore us to the place where we were once as one, as Elohim, as the principalities and the powers that have created the covenant of one fire, of one love. So the emphasis was on Mother's side on this one. But the Tav, Yod Tav, whenever you see a Vav or a Yod, it's meant as the power for you to connect to it, because if it became a Vav in the middle of this, we would have Thoth. Tav, Vav, Tav is Thoth. Emerald tablets of Thoth, or Thoth, or Toth, however you want to say it, is Thoth, or Thoth. This was in the time of ancient Egypt, and those emerald tablets were written in ancient Aramaic. If it was on the suffix with utha, which is the suffix onto chai, so Zarin, when you were talking about the word chai or chaya, chai is the shortened form of the word of life or living. Utha is the suffix. If this utha, and there's a reason why I'm saying that, because it's kai utha, the living, that have the vav tav aleph connected to father and meekness, that have the covenant of father, bereshit, in oneness unity, Mashiach, the Christ anointing, that word yitar becomes abundance, excellence, advantage, and increase. So you have an advantage. Utha is the same suffix for chai. Chai utha is the beast of Revelation 13, the same word for the living creatures that open the scrolls in Revelation chapter 7. This is a very big suffix. Now, if the mem had been on the prefix, mayitra, it means an excellent thing, a value, precious, costly, better, greater, more important, and valuable. Why? Why am I pointing these things out to you? Because if you can see these things in just a word study, on just a word study, you can be blown away of the information in one word. Because this yitra, when it is added with the mem and the aleph on front, it means those who entered into the waters of chaos and found oneness. It is an excellent thing of value, precious and costly, better and greater, more important and valuable, because they went through the waters of chaos. All of us, the waters of chaos, being born from our mother's womb, the water breaks, we come out born upside down, we don't know who we are, we have to figure it all out. And when you find oneness, unity, because it's been given the power, the covenant to raise you up, bereshit, you become precious. You are an excellent thing because you went through it. Now, if the mem and utha is on the suffix, because this one was a mem with the aleph, this is with utha, vav tav aleph. It means excellence, virtue, and honor. And this whole verse ends up, she put to him in here because she added this. These were her words that she added for grammatical reasons. Again, we see the lamed hey, the instructions that will teach you and reveal to you the hidden. Because what the hidden does, it reveals the realness of who you are. You are light, you are dark, you are both of these things, so that we can render it clear. And the whole point of all of this is so that we can all become teaching shepherds, so that we are given the rod of the teacher, the authority to bring forth this revelation. Because this movement that is going on is not about one person. It's not about Ken or I. Oh, heavens gracious, it's not about us. It's about all of us that are loosening ourselves from the beast ego, that are coming to be raised up, to be the teaching shepherds that are bringing this. Because we're choosing to take the time to learn and to teach and to compile and put everything together, bring it together, connecting it. Because it's what we were taught in, it's what we were trained up in, it's what we studied, it's what we have knowledge in, because we were changed. We were transformed into that, and the staff of authority is given to those who become it. Because your frequency changes. You have the covenants that change you. That's all of this that is taken, put into, for unto him who hath, it shall be given. And we saw what was given. An increase will come to him. Now, when you read these words, you will know the depth of what is being said in here. That is so fascinating to me, to see what is being given to us, why the instruction is necessary, why we are here doing this. It's not to tickle our ears. If you are here just to have your ears tickled, really? We've had enough of that. If you're here, it should be because we want real change. And I know that Zarin shared something with my husband about just how this last year has been for him. And I know Zarin has entered in, his whole family has entered into studying the language. Even the kids have learned the letters. They're doing it together as a family, and it's producing change. And I'm sure, Zarin, that it's raising some stuff in you that you're having to face, because I have to face it. Because it's spiritual maturation. It's time for us to raise up into these things, because the world needs this message, because we are the ones that are responsible to bring it back, to restore it, Bereshit to Akarit, so that we're taking the one covenant, fire covenant, and reestablishing it in the end, so that we have one family of life. And that's what the teachings are allowing for us. If we allow them to, I love it that Jesse's used this before, if we choose to collaborate with them, because the language is calling out to us, because it wants to compress the light within us, which is truth, to instruct us. The Hebrew word kol is kuf vav lamed. The kuf, by the way, is also connected to aleph and yod. Kuf has the number value of 100. Kuf is the letter that means to compress light in the circle of time, to find the narrow path between the light and the dark through that which was once hidden, now revealed. It is the 19th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the spiritual number of the meaning of 19 has to do with faith. It also means 100, in the spiritual meaning of 100, is of the flock, the holy flock. And I shared with you guys here recently that if you go and you see my teaching that I shared about Paul laying on hands, and it was the spirit of holiness that came upon them, and then all of a sudden it got changed into Holy Spirit. It was the spirit of holiness. It was Ruach HaDekudsha. Spirit, Aleph added. Kadosh, holy, door on the front, Aleph added. The spirit of holiness is the spirit of oneness that is the door into becoming set apart into oneness unity. And why do people become set apart? Because they have found oneness unity in the system of duality. That is what set apart means. You have found oneness in the system of duality, so therefore you're set apart from it. That's what holiness is. So the laying on hands is releasing the spirit of oneness over you, in you and through you. But you still have to go through the door to get into it. So this message of this right here, of what is being given to us, is for us to manifest it through the spirit of holiness, the spirit of oneness that is meant to be manifested. And I believe that all of you guys that are here, I don't know what the comments are on YouTube. I wish I could see them. But all of you that are here in the Zoom room, I know that you want this, and I know that that's why you're here. All of us want this. We want oneness unity. We're done with the system of duality. We don't want division anymore. I don't know about you. I'm so done with dueling. It's the cry of my heart for oneness unity. Because when I found it on the inside, I knew it was possible for us to manifest it externally. And the more of us that do it, we will have shalom. We will have completion. And it will be manifested. It's time. It can be done sooner than later. But that's why the Hebrew and Aramaic need to go out so people know it. Because some people need to see it. I need to see it. If you're coming to bring me a message that is totally counter to that which I have given my whole life to, and you want me to believe it as the gospel truth, I want to see it. It doesn't have to do with a lack of faith. It has everything to do as what is the Spirit leading you into. And the Spirit needs to lead me into it through the word. And this is done, yes, Lemoyne, it's done with duality, because we have to learn the difference between this and that. We have to get fed up and see that everything is vanity in the system of duality. I find this very, when you look into what Solomon was writing, okay, again, divorcing from the narratives the way the story was written, when you read Solomon's writings, oh my gosh, they are so amazing. Just like Paul's writings are so incredible. They're just mind-blowing, the depth of the wisdom that was imparted to Solomon when he penned these things. And I was trying to figure out why there was a sense of frustration when he was writing like the book of Ecclesiastes. Everything's vanity, everything's vanity, everything's vanity, everything's vanity. The reason why everything was vanity is because he had the codes and nobody else did. He couldn't teach the codes because it wasn't time. The Father's teaching was not allowed to be revealed in that time because the people weren't ready for it. So everything that Solomon built was in the system of duality, which means in the system of duality, what you build, somebody else is going to take down and build on top of. There is nothing of lasting value that remains in the system of duality. It's not meant to. Because when the light increases, the dark pushes back. When the dark push is increasing, the light pushes back. So that which the dark builds, the light destroys and creates. And that when there's too much light, the dark destroys and builds. So everything is in vanity because it's constantly flowing. Look at the waters in the ocean. Ebb and flow, ebb and flow. And every now and then there's a tsunami and it wipes everything out and they have to rebuild. That is the way the system of duality works. So that's why oneness unity is the resolve to that, because that which we are building is then of lasting value. Oneness unity has no duality attached to it. So everything that you build in oneness unity is eternal because it was that way from the beginning. And that's why we're returning back to oneness unity. The place where things where moth and rust cannot destroy because it is of eternal value. It is the law of one. It is one love. It is one family. It is one covenant. It is oneness unity. One with all things, the restoration of all things. So the restoration of all things is into oneness unity, in case you wanted to know, because there's that scripture too. Okay. I'm done. You guys we can talk away now. So if you have comments or things that you want to talk about, I'm good to go. I shared everything that I wanted to share today. Unless it's one of those things that you guys are trying to figure out a question to ask or you're trying to absorb what I just said.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. I mean, there's so much there, and I'm just, I understand the concepts. The letters still get me messed up.
I know.
I'm still learning that, and I may have to do some of my own independent study to learn that, which is fine. But I just wanted to share something that I experienced last night on another Zoom call. And I guess what I'm going to say is we have to have compassion for those that are in the process of deconstructing the English narrative. I listened to an elderly woman last night on Zoom having like a total meltdown because she's got a lot of things going on. She's alone, she's isolated, she's on a fixed income. What else? Oh, health issues. And she was having kind of like a dark night of the soul. I think a lot of the energies that are coming in are hitting people that don't even know what's going on.
Agreed.
I know what's going on, and these energies are knocking me on my ass and bringing all kinds of stuff up for me.
Yep.
I mean, I've been like just insane with like emotions and just shadows that I have to work on that have been coming up for me. But this poor woman, she was going through all this, not knowing what's going on. And then she was, on top of that, she was coming to the conclusion or coming to the realization that all of these scriptures in the English that she had relied on her whole life and that gave her comfort to see her through storms was failing her.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it broke my heart. And so I just want to say, we have to have compassion for people that this is, that really are not at this level, and just be gentle with them. And it just broke my heart to listen to her last night.
I totally get it. This is one of those things that if you go into the law of one material, is that answers cannot be given unless questions are asked. So when we are going through the deconstruction phase, that's when a lot of the questions are being asked, but we can only answer to the level at which someone is at, because it is all a catalyst. So this poor woman going through what she's going through is a catalyst that is drawing her up and out of the things that don't serve her anymore, but she just doesn't have. I understand this because I was sharing that that's how I met Renee. So I understand it because she was going through it and I went through it. I can't even begin to tell you how sick to my stomach I was in being, literally feeling totally obliterated when the story that I had believed since I was like 7 years old was unraveling before my eyes, and I didn't know what to do. It was like my little life raft in the waters of chaos was just completely ripped, and I was in flailing chaotic waters with no land in sight, and I thought I was going to drown and die. And that is not an exaggeration. So I hear you, Greg, and I totally 100% agree with that. 100%.
It's a huge loss. You have to literally go through a full grieving process with it.
Yep.
It's that big because it's
I was concerned
totally
that
ingrained in you.
might take her life too, because she was really down. It was really painful to listen to.
Well, even in the English narrative, it says men's hearts will fail them.
Yeah.
And some of this stuff, this is what I think is so interesting to see how it's coming out. There's that scripture in the Bible that says the great falling away. Well, the great falling away is those that are falling away and choosing to come out of the English narrative, that are having these revelations that are coming, that are contradicting what the religious narrative has always been for us. That's really what's going on. That is the great falling away.
Yeah.
And it's a process because I still struggle with the narratives.
Yeah, me too.
You just still, it takes a long time. It's literally, so ingrained with you, the brainwashing. It's actually something you have to relearn, and it's a loss. So it's just a huge process.
Well, and I'm glad that you shared that. I'm actually Regina can say it, but Regina was involved when she was growing up and was involved in a cult. And they very much were very literal interpretation of the Bible. And it was very extreme. In fact, she's pretty much lost family. Because of it, because she chose to come out of that. So for anyone that knows, my friend Regina has really, really lived it in a very painful way of years of her deconstructing and picking up all the pieces that she's needed to get to where she's at now. And she and we've had lots of discussions where we've both been wrestling, and it's like, oh, what do I do with this? And so we know it very well. And I'm sure, hey, Kathleen, you had a question?
Yes, I wasn't going to ask this because I always think, well, the answer is probably just that I'm not spiritually mature, but since other people are brave, I'll go ahead. I've been going through something too, and kind of my personality. I also had suffered with complex PTSD and narcissists around me and all that. So I've done a lot of work in that area, and God's helped me, but I still have big struggles Just because 8 or 9 years ago, I didn't believe, that God would send most people to hell. Because of that and the studies I did, family members, friends, they just really hold me at, arm's length. They don't want me around their kids and everything. And now that I've discovered these teachings, and it feels so true on the inside of me, and I already heard these things inside of me before, even though I didn't understand all the letters. But here's what I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with when things are happening in my life that are so hard. Is this just to help me grow, or is this something from my past life, my karma, or is this reaping what I must have sowed along the way here? And I don't know the answers to that.
Well,
Sorry,
yes.
was that a bad
No,
question?
no, because really it's the same thing. It can be answered that yes, it is for your growth, regardless of where it's coming from, regardless if it's something from a different incarnation or if it's something now. Everything, our difficult times are meant to produce growth and maturation. They're called catalysts for a reason. And so when I was sharing with Regina here a couple weeks ago, we were discussing the word tov. And when we were discussing the word tov, it's tet vav bet. Tet literally is a word that means a wrestle. Just in a summary, it means the wrestle. It's the place where you're wrestling in the basket with the snake, with the seraphic message and connecting to it. But you're in this huge wrestle, and it's meant for you to pierce your heart to build you on the inside. That's like the summary of the letters of tet vav bet. And it's the word that means good. So when you are wrestling, it's to produce a nature within you, connecting at the heart level, so that you are learning and building yourself. And Bet Tov is building the covenant. And we've already shared what covenant is, returning back to Bereshit, which is meant to restore you. Full restoration. So when we have these wrestling in these difficult times, that's when we can actually look at it from a place of being thankful and grateful for them because of what it's going to produce. No, they're not fun to go through. I did not like going through my dark night of the soul. It was like months on end, and I didn't think I was going to survive it.
Okay, well, Terry, I put my hands up so many times, even before I met you guys, and I just figured it had a purpose. And I just surrendered, and I knew I had said many times, whatever it takes, because I figured I was being changed into something. However, I just turned 70, and I do have an illness, and I think, what if I don't get it all the way? Do I lose all that I've learned now if I have to come back again, or am I always going to, when I struggle with my shadow, continue, not every minute, but does that mean I haven't reached the point that'll be accepted? This is probably from the old stuff we've learned, but I don't know.
No, you don't. Really, this incarnation is about serving others or serving self. And the fact that you are willing to go within and you're dealing with your shadow stuff and you're asking these questions already lets me know that this has nothing to do with controlling and manipulating other people. This has everything to do. I mean, if you have suffered at the hand of a narcissist, then you're an empath. Then you're someone who is extremely giving and loving. So that already lets me know that you are not in a service to self-clarity. You are already in the heart of giving. You feel others. You are emotionally attached to other people because your heart is wide open. Okay. You're not having to relive anything. You're not going to have to do any of that because it's about that choice, serving others or serving yourself. And your life in what you've experienced already lets me know where you're at. You're just doing the finesse work that we are all doing right now. Like Greg said, there's stuff that's coming out that he's wrestling with. I know I'm wrestling with stuff. I mean, Regina and I talk about it. We're very truthful about stuff. I had a great conversation again with Brandon Dodd. I had one with him last night too, because we were talking about the meeting today. And of course it went off like it always does. And we were talking about some serious struggles, some things that are coming up, some things that we're having to render clear that are still part of it. And as long as you're still here, we're still going to be going through the purifying process. It never stops until it's done. And when it's done is when the harvest is complete. And this is why we're feeling things like so many people have anticipation right now. I've had so many private messages come to me. I feel like something's close. I feel like it's close. I've seen that, I don't know, 50 times, 100 times over the last month. But because we're feeling it, there's a sense of like completion or something that we're like the finality of the race.
Exactly. I don't want to run out of time. I need to
No.
do a lot of work.
Well, and this is why I think COVID came about, guys. We had a stopping of everything for like a year. A stopping of everything. Because it was time that we needed to find resolve on the inside. And a lot of us were challenged in a lot of areas. One of my biggest challenges is with finances. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. That is and my husband said something the other day to me and I was like, dang it, you're so right, but I'm so mad right now. He said, finances is what's keeping you from having your victory.
Oh.
Because there's been much of my life that has been in poverty, always fearing like I'm not going to have enough. And last winter was very hard. Last winter was very, very hard. In fact, there was no money coming in. We had some stored food, and I'm really grateful that we had stored food because we've never been on government handouts at all. We just don't. I don't do the stimulus package. I'm not judging anybody that does. We just didn't. We didn't do any of that. Don't do food stamps. We don't do any of that because we backed out of the B system completely. And when we were going through it, yeah, we survived. We had food, but I wasn't getting enough protein, and I lost half of my hair. I lost half of my hair, and it was just coming out. I mean, I can't even believe it how little hair I have now because of the winter. We survived, bellies were fine. I got fluffed up because I was eating a lot of carbohydrates and I was making bread, and I was very happy with my bread. Thank you, Zarin, for my flour grinder, because one bag of wheat berries, I mean, that lasted us and gave us a lot of food to make it through the winter. And we don't talk about our needs is because I needed to learn the lesson, right? That I was going to be okay, but I was being challenged with money issues. And to realize that I had enough and I was just fine because it was all attached to my beast ego and fear. So I was still wrestling with it. And so there are times where the beast ego is completely just tamed, yoked. But that is one where I will get myself out of control. I get down to $10 in my checking account and I am freaking out. But you know what? In the course of my whole walk, I have never not had a roof over my head, and I've never gone without a meal unless I was purposely fasting. I've always had something to eat, and I've always had a roof over my head. And I still wrestle with finances. So I'm just being honest. That's just part of that I'm still. So know that I haven't arrived anywhere, guys. All I know is I love you and I love all of humanity, and I feel the oneness. I feel it when I meditate. I feel it when we come together. I feel it when I'm in conflict with somebody else. And if that is the measuring rod, which with I can see in scripture, then those little nuances that we're still wrestling with is what keeps us humble.
Oh my goodness, how beautiful. That's so life affirming and encouraging. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Thinking of a Bible verse here. Is my volume good enough, or do I need to go closer?
Well, as soon as you came in closer, it was perfect. So
okay.
That's awesome.
When you said the snake wrestling in the basket, does that refer to Jesus saying when you pick up snakes, they're not going to harm you?
Well, yeah, because it's a seraphim messenger.
I mean, it's not about picking up literal snakes. No. I thought so.
No, it's not. And it's, that's why those verses, we kind of laugh at it, because when you get a few keys of a few words and you begin to see what they are, you can listen to the English translations and you can read a verse and completely read it different now. because
Yeah.
you can see the underlying current that is there. So I'm not telling people to throw out their English Bibles, because like, you know, Renee, you've posted many things on Facebook where you've taken scriptures. Brandon's done the same thing. David Daniel I am has done the same thing. Many other ones. I mean, I could just list off a whole bunch of people on Facebook that are doing that right now. Lemoyne does it too. You know, you'll post things on Facebook because you have a different perception now of what is being said, because you've gone into the underlying current that was buried, that you're pulling it to the surface and saying, you know what, I am throwing this out here to you now because I see it differently. It's like that high-rise building, and I know I shared it before. I think I shared it here. I shared it this morning. I don't know. So if I'm saying it again, please forgive me. It's really hot in here and I can feel it. It's making me spacey in the brain. Anyway, so when you're in a city and you've got all these buildings surrounding you and you're walking, now I can say this because I went to New York several times when I was a hairdresser. I did some platform artist work, and I there was a school that I was attending there that I was flying from East Coast to West Coast, training me up to be a platform artist. And God, that was like a lifetime ago. In fact, I just can't even connect to it anymore, but it's what this vessel did for a while. When I was in New York and I was walking down the streets, it really was claustrophobic, because all of these buildings, all of the hustle and bustle, and you're only just seeing the stimulus that's surrounding you. But if you were a drone flying high above the city, right, you are seeing blocks and blocks and blocks as it's figuring it out. And you're seeing all those people walking, and you're seeing all the traffic, and you're seeing all of this stuff from a higher perspective. But when you're down lower and you're in the middle of it, there's so much chaos in the lower waters, in that lower point. You don't have any vantage. You are just stuck in the middle of all that chaos with limited perspective.
I call it ground view and aerial view.
That's right. So we come up higher. Coming up higher is giving us the better vantage point to see what's going on in the system of duality, so that we're not tied to just the one block we're on. We're seeing it from all these different blocks that are running simultaneously, choosing to, you know, you can look over here, you can look over here, you can look over here, but you're not having to be at any one place or choosing. You're just viewing.
Also, the lower narratives are, if you look at them as rehearsals, because you're acting out things on a physical level that you don't have in you yet.
Yeah.
Then you don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
But when you're acting them out, and I grew up in, like Carrie said, in a real literal, and, you know, picking up snakes, stuff like that was, you know, they looked at everything literally. And so the reality is it's a rehearsal, just like the feasts are a rehearsal. And so then they play out on a physical level where we can grab hold of it, it's tangible, and then we can take it in internally and get the spiritual message in it, principles.
That's so good, Regina. Thank you. I'm glad you shared. Zarin, you had a question?
I don't know, something struck me that led me back to a portion of the conversation we were having earlier about grieving the English narrative. For me, it was almost the opposite. It's like I was surrounded and going in deeper to the English narrative, and it was almost like, I wouldn't have said it was fear, but it was fear that was drawing me in. And it was that wrestle where I was kind of deciding in myself what path I was taking. I could see the division happening. I just didn't quite understand it. And then I met Ken and Carrie, and the questions just started coming out of me, like, because I could connect to them, and I knew it was a safe place to ask those questions. And even before I talked to them, it was like that stranglehold, like the breath that I was getting from getting that higher vantage point. It was, and then after a few conversations, it's like I've got my breath back. I can breathe, and peace started coming over me. And so it wasn't that I was, for me personally, I was not grieving the English narrative. I was being released from it, and it was a blessing. And that's my take on it. And it's, now I look around and I don't know, I'm grieving for other people that are still stuck in it, in a way. I've been wondering, like, why haven't I been emotional lately? Like, I'm almost stuck in this numbness right now, like I had been before, but for a different reason. And I'm just kind of been waiting on that, and kind of like anticipating, like we've been saying. And I'm sure it'll just break loose at some point, but until then, I'll keep waiting with that anticipation.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing, Zarin. I can see that with you said, because of conversations we've had with you before about the release from that English narrative. And really, in the system of duality, that's why you're going to see both sides. You're going to see the grieving of the loss, and then you'll see the freedom from the other side, you know, being free or grieving.
Bittersweet.
Huh?
Bittersweet.
Bittersweet, yeah. And so they both are existing at the same time, and not judging it and saying that one is wrong or one is right. It just is. It's how we're handling it, because we're all geared differently of how we're going to handle what that looks like. And for some, like for me, it was grieving, but then I would swing into the oh, I'm being freed up from it. So I experienced both of them, and they would ebb and flow. So there would be the days where I would be challenged with something and it would be heavy on my heart and I would be grieving. And then there would be another side where I was totally elated because I was being released from a pressure that really didn't exist. And it's interesting because Brandon and I were talking about the Course in Miracles. And one of the things that was being shared in the book of Course in Miracles, and I was sharing with Regina too, I think we were talking about how when some people do not have prayers that are answered, it's because it's said that the prayers that are being asked, that are being prayed for, of things that do not exist and are not real, are not being answered. So the analogy was, and Brandon used this, and I thought it was wonderful. His son, when he was younger, swore that there was a boogeyman under his bed. And Brandon knew that there wasn't a boogeyman under his bed. But to his son, that boogeyman existed to his son. But in reality, there was no boogeyman. His son had it all up in his head that the boogeyman was under his bed. So Brandon didn't go and agree with the boogeyman because the boogeyman wasn't real. You know, he could have said, yep, you know, that boogeyman is there and he's going to eat you. That kind of thing is the analogy he said, trying to, you know, paraphrase with it. And I was like, oh yeah, well, that makes sense. So the things that are in our life that are not real, the things that we have made, the things that are not of the eternal lasting value, that are in the system of duality, that are not real, those prayers are not being answered. Because if something was being answered, it would establish that it is real when it's not. The ego makes up all kinds of storylines and narratives for us to join into through experience. Nothing is wasted. But the truth is that we are one. That's why it's one covenant, one love, one family, one life, one truth. Everything else is just fractals of the truth into pieces, which then makes it false and not real.
So if you get delivered from demons, are they real then?
They were for you at the time.
Yeah.
But they weren't real. Because really, demonic entities are things which we have created for an experience. Outside of the system of duality, they don't exist. Because we're all one. We are all one. So even if there's negative entities that are trying to influence us in the system of duality where we are at, we created them. Those are entities that are holding the negative pole for an experience for you.
It's interesting, isn't it?
It's hard to wrap your mind around. It's really difficult because of the way that we have been taught.
But I think what she was getting at is the deliverance from them is probably just you yourself believing that you were free from them because they weren't real. And so
I wondered about it because with Brandon's example, God is not going to affirm what isn't really real. So
yes,
if I got delivered, it must have been
I don't know.
Well, I'm going to disagree a little bit here because I've had experience with it and I've seen stuff, and I think it's real, but I think you have to not give it energy, and that's all I'm going to say about it. I think
No, so again,
I think you can create loopholes for those negative energies to attach onto.
but again, those negative energies are that which we created as entities that are fractaled out, that have energies that come in. So what I'm saying about when we say they are demons, they are parts.
Well, I'm not saying they're demons.
Oh, I know, but that was the original term used. Are demons real? Now, the energies in interaction, yes, they are. There are opposing frequencies. But really, what we are allowing is that if we are in a dual mindset, if we've had a lot of chaos on the inside of us, if we have a lot of fear, then all of these fractured out egos, whether they have flesh form or not have flesh form, whether they've chosen to manifest in flesh or stay in fourth. See, we've got third density, or we have third dimension, fourth dimension, going into fifth dimension. Fourth dimension is the frequency band that we cannot see. In our limited, what do they call that? Our visible light, the spectrum of the visible light in this human vessel is a very narrow bandwidth. I know you guys have all seen this. I'm talking to a mature audience, and you know what I'm saying. It's a very, very narrow bandwidth. And there is all of this on the outside of what we can't see with these natural eyes, which is fourth dimension. So there are energies that are out there interacting with us, very much so. But that's part of the experience in duality. Those who are of the flesh and those who are not. Everything has an opposite. And this is a point that I was meditating on this on the other night, and I was like, oh my gosh, everything has an opposite. So you think of one thing, just pick anything in your mind. Just pick one thing. There's always going to be something opposing it, the exact opposite. So there's entities that are in flesh, and then there's entities that are in spirit. There is the Christ, Mashiach, and then there's the Antichrist. There's always going to be an opposite to everything because it's in the system of duality. And we created it as Elohim in the beginning so that we can experience what it looks like, everything opposing one another. Because really, that's how we see how everything is vain, because of what I was saying, with the light increasing, the dark has to push back. The dark increases, the light has to push back, ebbing and flowing, building and tearing down, and building and tearing down, century after century after century.
Yeah. And in the third density, it's almost all about duality, but you still have it in fourth and fifth density. We do. You don't
dimension.
Third, have the absence of duality to reach sixth density. So we're going to experience duality, whether we like it or not, in the lower vibrations, in the lower densities.
But imagine what it's going to be like, Greg, if you don't have entities that are service to self in the mix.
Right, and that's sixth density when we get to that density level.
Well, the law of one says that, I'm just saying law of one with the harvest is saying that those service to self entities won't be there.
Exactly, but it's not till sixth density that occurs. If you read the law of one, that's where that occurs, is in the sixth density. That's where they have to make a decision. That's where they have to make a decision to either go with the light or go back and to be recycled.
Right, but generally they operate in the lower dimensions.
Yes.
So as we are, so the way the law of one that I read it before, not that I'm trying to convince anyone of anything, my understanding it was at the end of the harvest, the way the separation happens is you have three things that happen. You have the service to self, you have the service to others, and then you have the ones that didn't make a choice at all. The service to self is going to a fourth density environment that is all service to self. The service to others is staying with earth into fourth density service to self, where the green ray chakra body is all about the heart opening and expanding.
Yeah.
It's a different, it's
There's two levels of fourth density too. There's negative fourth density negative and fourth
that's what I'm
density
saying.
positive. Yeah.
So fourth density negative goes elsewhere, but isn't going to be part of Earth's ascension. They can't, because it's Earth's ascension is moving out of that. They are going to a place that's all negative density, all service to self. And so what they end up doing is, as Gaia, as the Earth is ascending and humanity is ascending with her, becoming one with her, those negative entities will be going into places where they can harm and infiltrate third density, because then they're in a place where they're trying to subjugate the lower frequencies and the lower densities to subjugate them. But they are not part of the Earth's evolution in ascension. And then those who are caught in the middle that don't do anything, that just choose not, then they have to go to a third density planet elsewhere that is in the evolution process, and they have to go back through the reincarnation loops, which is a minimum of 25,000 years. That's how the law of one describes it.
Yeah.
Go into outer darkness. Ah!
I know. So, it's interesting because I don't see all of that written in the sacred writings. I see the oneness principle. And I think the reason how I've been able to reconcile all of this is that when we are in an adolescent state, we can't get all of these higher information into a lesser evolution state of immaturity, because what do you do with it? So the sacred writings were given to us at a certain level to take us up to a certain level so that we could have expanding consciousness, so the other stuff could come in. So the sacred writings aren't going to clearly define all of that. The whole reason for the sacred writings is for us to find oneness, unity on the inside. That's the whole thing. And it talks about the promise of what that'll look like on the outside, but it doesn't go into the densities. It doesn't go into the dimensions. It doesn't discuss those things, because for us, a lot of that is irrelevant. For us right now, the spiritual maturation is finding oneness, unity, and healing on the inside. That is what's most relevant, because these sacred writings were given into this time period in this epoch. It's not going to address anything else. It's for us right here. It's our manual for right here to deal with third dimension in what we're dealing with in the system of duality. That's the whole reason why the writings are here. So it's fun. It's like good mind candy to talk about all the other stuff. I love having conversations with it because I find it absolutely fascinating. But at the end of the day, the most important is, what are we doing with the work on the inside of us? What are we doing at the heart level?
And we can't get to that other place until we have completed this stage. Anyways, that's why I don't go flying off into all these potential possibilities. I got to deal with what's here right now. So just
I know. That's why I said, for some of us, it's really good mind candy. That's a phrase from Dolores Cannon, and I thought it was awesome. She's like, the mind candy is good. Just don't get stuck there, because you got work you got to do.
Yeah, I do it for a while, but then I had a tired day the other day. I said, enough.
That's right. That's right. Let's just keep it. It's that KISS principle, right? Keep it simple, silly. Just keep it simple, because there's enough out there that can get us pulled into so many directions that we get distracted.
There's a ghost in Zaren's video.
His beautiful family. There we go. Oh, that was awesome. That was awesome.
That's funny.
Anyway, do you guys have any other questions or any other comments? I mean, Greg, I really enjoyed that. I'm not even putting down what you're saying. I enjoy.
No, I mean, I know that's truth for me. This is something that I've downloaded.
Yeah.
And that's what's true for me anyway.
But
you don't want to give that energy. That's all I'm saying. I think there are negative entities, particularly in the 4D negative. And I think we're kind of vacillating back and forth. I think the Earth is already kind of ascending into 4D. And so we're going to experience more of that, in my opinion.
So I'm going to add one more thing to what you're saying. What I mean when they don't exist is that when you enter into oneness unity and you are in unconditional love and you are full of light and love, those negative entities and energies are going to leave you alone. They only come to those who have access points through fear.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, and I agree with you 100%. So we're saying the same thing. I'm
Right.
just saying that when you get to the point of where you are in oneness unity and you are so full of love and light, it is too dangerous for them to come and bother you.
Yeah. I'm not there yet.
Well, it's a process. I will share this with you as a personal testimony. I did have influences of demonic oppression when I was younger in my spiritual lack of maturity. And it was not good and it was not fun. And I went through deliverance ministries and there were some things that I experienced that scared the living bejeezies out of me. But again, it was all fear-based because a lot of it was stuff that was fear that was programmed into me through narratives that I totally took hook, line, and sinker. And I had so much fear that I was a perfect candidate for these energies to tromp all over me, to subjugate me.
Yeah.
But once I started rising up out of that and perfecting love and not having room for the fear,
Yeah.
I don't experience any of that anymore.
Yeah,
I
'cause
mean,
you're
not
feeding-
at
you're-
all.
You're feeding them. You're giving them loosh.
It's the energy again. So when we were sharing about the selfish fire, when we were talking, I think it was last weekend, about those who enter into the negative density, they don't produce their own light. They have to take it. They have to take it from a source to keep them going because they've skipped their heart chakra. They're not generating their own energy. They have to take it. So those who are opened up to fear, they're eating that energy and we're feeding them. And that's why they come back, because they're very much narcissistic, parasitic, vampiric, and they will eat our light force energy if we allow it. That's why we have to perfect love. Because
I think we're saying the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because as soon as you perfect love, they're not going to come near you because you realize, hey, we're one with one another. You took the dark path. I took the light path. You're holding the negative pole. I love you. I thank you for your service. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, because they can't, it'll diminish them in the route that they chose to take.
And it's like a radio, really, and with the bandwidth. If you're in the higher frequencies, that other dimension can't get there. It's a different frequency.
It's a different frequency, but also why would they even bother? Like if those entities are trying to get you to fear, right? And so let's take a look at mainstream. Look at all of the stuff that's on television. Look at all the stuff that's on television. It's all fear-based. So the system is set up to keep us in that vibration of fear so that those energies can continue feeding off of those that are producing light.
Makes sense, yeah.
And so if we don't have these teachings to go forward to explain it, then someone will be constantly living in fear and having all of this stuff happening to them when it's really stuff that they can rise out of by perfecting fear, by going on the inside, getting and taking their divided house, which is really like bipolarism, right? Taking their divided house of being tossed to and fro all the time between the different poles, bringing it so it's solidified into oneness on the inside, then they realize that there's nothing to fear. It's like, oh, that was just a shadow and an illusion, something for me to learn from, but I'm in oneness unity. Hey, I'm an eternal being. This is just my earth suit for this experience. I never die. I'm energy that is just transmuted into a different shape or form. And so then all that stuff that's trying to be thrown at us, you just don't bite anymore.
Yeah. Agreed.
And Zarin, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'll share that with Ken. Anyway, so I'm totally with you, Greg. I'm totally with you. The best thing that we can do, and what they have said with what is the most important thing for us to do, is to send light and love. To always send light and love. Because again, oneness, unity, we know that we are one with them. They just don't know it. They chose to hold the negative pole, whether they choose to do it in a earthly vessel body or in a frequency that we can't see them. They're choosing that negative pole, and we needed them while we were here to learn and grow from. I have so much compassion for those who choose that path, because it is the long way home. And they are going to have to go through all of the stuff that we've had to with our shadow work and all of the pain and suffering that we've had to transmute. They're going to have to do it too. They can't escape it. So, and once you do that, once you send them light and love, they don't want to bother you. It's not worth it to them. It's too risky for them. They are going to find the ones that are living in fear and that have chaos on the inside. And that's where they will get their feed. So think about it this way with narcissism. Narcissists will find who they can get their feed from. Who can they get that energy from? And a lot of us here, a lot of people that are involved that I talk to have suffered at the hands of narcissists because we're empaths. It's like, it is our heart to want to give and help and serve. We're like, oh, you got a bleeding heart. Oh, I'm right there. But a lot of that is bait for us to come in because they need to get their supply fix from somewhere because their heart's not being activated. So it's the same thing for entities that aren't in the flesh. They have to get their supply from somewhere. They're just very narcissistic in how they do it. And it just makes a lot more sense when you can translate it out that way and go, okay, because a lot of that is just, there's just no heart. And a lot of that started because of trauma that happened and they turned off their heart. And they went through that path because they don't ever want to be hurt again. So they want to learn what they can to control and manipulate. So they stay always on the top. Because if you're on the top, then nothing can crush you from above. Because you are the top. And that's the way they see it. That's why they want to subjugate us continually. But really the answer, what allows us to ascend, so we are overstanding, is unconditional love. Then there's no more hook. There's no more supply for them. Not the way they want it. Not the way they need it. The worst thing for them would be have their heart chakra opened. Anyway, do you guys have any other questions? Any other comments? We're at 3:45. Can you believe it? I don't know how it happens. It happens. I don't know how it happens, but it happens. Anyway, if you guys don't have any other questions on that, I'm really hot and sweaty in this room. I don't know how hot it is outside, but this room got hot really fast. And I've been sitting in here cooking in it, and I can feel my brain just going, too much. Get into some air conditioning. At least we're not at 110 anymore. So I'm okay with that. But still, 90 to 95 is too hot for me.
Wow. Well, thank you for bearing the heat.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Greg. Well, I want to be here with you guys. I love you, and I love these conversations. These are conversations that we need to have. We need to bring these things forward. We need to be real. We need to be brave. We need to be willing to put it out there so that others can hear this information, because truth is truth. Light is light. And we need to know it so that we can wrestle whatever we need to wrestle so that we can be the resolve. We need to be the answer. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate the discussion greatly. And the truth is there. And the brave ones are the ones that are willing to look outside of the box to look for the answers so we can find out how to resolve the issues. That's why we're doing it. I believe that with all of my heart. We are here because we want to resolve the issues.
Yeah, I think we're here to serve. That poor woman, there's gonna be a whole bunch of people like that.
Yes, there are. And honestly, I do believe that we are going to see probably a lot of loss of life in lots of reasons, because as the density is starting to close itself out, the matrix needs to be emptied. And that's what the harvest looks like. And because we are, like what you were sharing, we just came out of, it was Kali Yuga, right? We just came out of Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we came out of it and now we're swinging towards the light. This is the time of the harvest because it's the end of the 75,000 year cycle. So this is where we're branching into something new. But because we're in this inverted matrix, the energies have to be emptied out of it so it closes down so that we can enter into the new. And so because of that, you know, I do believe that we're going to see a lot of loss of life, and understand that it is necessary, that this is part of it, and that we need to allow ourselves to go through the grieving process of whatever is necessary so that energies don't get stuck, but to realize to not have fear about any of it because we are eternal beings. We are eternal beings. And I want to say that as many times as I possibly can because we are energetic beings in a flesh suit, and energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. Consciousness is energy. So I don't know how it's all going to look, and I don't know how it's all going to be played out, but I do know that getting rid of our flesh suit is a way out. Because this flesh suit is part of this matrix and part of this experience. And there's different ways that we will be shedding the earth suit, dependent on where we are in our spiritual maturation. But as long as we can have these discussions, we can take the spooky out of death.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do. We need to take the spooky out of death, because there is no death. We don't die. We just put on a different suit. It's like going to work and putting on a different suit. We just wear it for a lot of years.
I'm ready for the Merkaba, buddy. I want to be flying around the universe.
Yes. You and me both, Greg. You and me both. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I didn't want to go into that whole conversation, because that's a whole other hour. Huh?
Another day.
I know. And there's lots of videos. Hey guys, because of what Greg said, there are videos where we have discussed the Merkaba. If you go through our YouTube and just go through all the videos and look up ones that have the word Merkaba in it, and we do discuss it, because it is one of the vehicles. It's transmuting out of our flesh body into our energetic light body, and it is going to happen, and it will happen, and it'll be amazing. So I love you guys. There is no spooky. We're on an incredible journey. I am so glad you guys are here. I'm so glad that you allow me to share these things with you. And I am so excited. The only other thing I want to say is that diving in, I do, and I am going to be teaching Father's teaching. I'm going to be doing some basic, real quick overview of the letters, just like basic quick overview of Mother's teachings. But Mother's teaching you really kind of need to do for yourself. You can gather all the resources, and the way I suggest it, make flashcards. Go to Jeff Benner's website. Zarin, is that where you guys found a lot of your information to make flashcards? Was Jeff Benner's Ancient Hebrew Resource Center? Does that make a sense, or was that your wife's doing? I just don't know which one you guys used.
We use, I don't know where she got them, honestly. We had some cards that was sent to us from my godfather, and we went through, we cringed through some of Jim Staley stuff, because where we were already at. And so yeah, I mean, just kind of learning the letters, and then I find myself going through in my head, just going over, instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4 like you guys did, I'll just start saying Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, and I'll go through and I'll actually see the number next to the letter as I'm going through it in my head.
That's good. Yeah. So basically what I've suggested everybody to do, because it's part of the learning process too, is if you make your own flashcards, it forces you to write the letters, write the meanings, put the number, which is it's part of the memory process. And then you have your flashcards. And that's how Ken and I started. And it was repeatedly over and over. And just like Zarin did, we would go through the alphabet and we would say it, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, and we would just go over it over and over and over again. I mean, I'm sure that if people were around us, it would have driven them nuts. But that really is the basic understanding, that if everybody did that, then it would actually make my job a little bit easier, that I wouldn't have to go from the very beginning to teach you those basics, because most of that you guys can do on your own. Then when we jump into the teachings, I can take you into the depths of like how I'm teaching you here. And we can discuss it. We can talk about the root and the prefix and the suffix and what that looks like, and all of the minutia, because you already have the basic understanding of the letters and identifying with the meanings of their the paleo meanings. So that's just my recommendation. And it's very helpful if you do that, because especially when you connect to, when I'm doing it letter by letter and word by word, you'll already recognize the letters and you will already have that basic information. It's just helps with inculcation. And so it is a pain in the butt. I'm not going to lie. The beginning stages of learning the languages and choosing to learn the letters, I didn't have a whole lot of fun. I mean, I was excited because I knew I was going to use it, but it wasn't a whole lot of fun. It was like, oh God, this is painstaking. And it really was. But that's part of Mother's teaching, right? I mean, when you're a little kid, if you were learning this, like children learn their language, then it would be no big deal. But when you start doing it in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and you've already got ingrained thought and you're trying to pick up something new, it's hard. And I have compassion for that learning process too. So the sooner that we can get those under our belt, the easier it'll be for you to dive into the deeper teachings when I start releasing them, because that's really where I want to take you. Because the other stuff, the external orientation, spirit, you already innately know to not go punch your neighbor in the face. You already know that. It's not a good idea unless you have a beast ego that's out of control. But those of us who had some good parenting, we know that we shouldn't be doing that. So that part of Mother's teaching should have been handled at a young age. What I'm concerned about and most interested in is teaching the stuff which has been hidden from you, because it's time for that to be released now. We have enough light supporting it that it's time for those things to get out there. And that's where I want to start with. So do some of your homework and then we'll just jump in and we'll have a lot of fun when I start releasing those things. But for now, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We'll have great conversations and, make comments, questions, send them emails, whatever. And, we'll just keep doing this. I highly enjoy this. It's important as we establish community, and you'll see there's some other platforms that we're looking at. I am going to be opening up a Facebook page for those of you who are on Facebook that will just be not my own, but a group. It'll be a Facebook group that will just be, and it will be one of those that is a membership, so that people that are coming in will be involved like you guys are right here, so that you can enter in those that want to engage on Facebook. I will be having that. I'm doing that. Regina and I are working on that right now. So stay tuned for that. So if there's nothing else, I didn't pray before we started. I always pray in the morning, but I just didn't pray. So I'm just gonna close this out with just a blessing. That's just what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna close this out with a blessing. So I thank you, Father and Source, the place of origin, the place that we came from and the place that we are going to, for giving us the ability to have eyes to see. I thank you that you have given us this incredible journey to come and experience all these great treasures that were here in the system of duality. Everything that we've experienced, from the good, the bad, the indifferent, that has made us to who we are today, that as we are expanding not only ourselves, we're expanding you. And as we continue to expand out within the universe, that the oneness, unity, would be that which ripples out from this place, a place that has been set apart, a place that has lived and been in gross darkness for a long time. And we know that the light has come, and we know that it has come from you, and that all of us here have chosen to join in that, so that we could raise ourselves up and out of this system, so that we could truly be teaching shepherds of light that would be teaching the way of one, just like Yeshua did. I thank you for that opportunity, and I thank you that you made these teachings available. I thank you that you gave us this language and this vibrational frequency that would affect matter, not only us and our DNA, but the world that is around us, and the way that we can see the matrix, live within the matrix, function within the matrix, to bring forth this oneness unity that your son came to show us as a manifestation of you, as Yod-He, Shin Vav-He, that we would pick up that baton and we would become the fiery messengers that would come forth with the covenant of fire, the one that would bring us forth into the oneness unity, that would bring everything back into the restoration of all things. And I thank you for the experiences with the negative polarity too. And I embrace them. I embrace my brothers and sisters in the pole that they chose to hold, and everything that it brought into my life for spiritual maturation, as well as everyone who's hearing my voice. All of our experiences, because we're learning and growing from one another as we walk this out together, doing the work together to create a beautiful, harmonious world, cleaning up our messes that we created so that we can be the resolve. And I say this in all the gratitude that I have from all that is within my being, through the frequency of the name of Yeshua, who is the word that is the rock, the one that came in the time of need to send us to those who are in the time of need, that we would be representations of that frequency of light and love. And I say this through the authority that has been given to me and within me and through me. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to meet again next week. Same time, same bat channel. We're going to have a good time. Have a great week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.